It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Everybody dance. Oh yeah, baby.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality. I'll be your host, Christy Powell. Joining me tonight is Serafina Smith. And of course, our founder and producer emeritus, Darrel Ray. Thanks so much for joining us again tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to take this July 4th holiday, not perhaps the most romantic of holidays, unless you see the relationship with our country and national pride as a toxic romance. Maybe I should have run this idea by y'all before we got on air.
Wait, fireworks. Fireworks are romantic and sexy.
Right, that's romantic
true.
and sexy.
Right.
But we wanted to spend some time talking about, I guess, the way our culture, the way our society deals with romance, you know, the way that we can be very possessive of the people we're attracted to, the way we can sort of see love as like this drug that we're become addicted to. I mean, I saw on a forum just today about how that new relationship energy is as strong as heroin. And we have these ideas of love as that are honestly very toxic. You know, and I think that's definitely worth having a conversation about. And I know as we were prepping for this, we kind of focused in on music and that part of pop culture because, man, there is nothing that will point out that Americans have some confusing ideas about love than some top 40s like pop radio.
Yep,
That is so true. I mean, yeah, nothing will lead more to a bad romance than something, you know, so toxic with every step we take, honestly.
Yeah. We really should just have a counter for how many lyrics we can just like casually sneak into the episode. But I'll be watching you. I'll be keeping track of that for you.
Now, look, you guys, you already stole mine. I'm sitting here looking at those. I want to talk about that one.
Right?
That is a fucking creepy song.
True fact.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that, I mean, that particular Police song, Every Step You Take, is definitely one that gets kind of highlighted. You know, that's one of the ones that I think a lot of folks are sort of generally aware of as being kind of tongue-in-cheek, creepy stalkery.
Oh, yeah.
And so for that reason, I think it's perhaps one of the first times I noticed that. But I guess I'm curious for y'all, when you started to recognize that, you know, watching Bella choose between two bows on the Twilight series, or, you know, these different things, that there is these toxic messages being presented through the radio, through TV and movies and these different things.
I was raised in a very religious family household. I was born in 1950. I know I look 39. But
Right,
I was
yeah,
really
that's
born
what
in
I was going to say.
1950. And the messages going around in the 50s and 60s when I was becoming of age and becoming an adolescent were just, love is forever. You meet the person, you never have sex, you don't masturbate, but they didn't talk about that. You just knew.
You just don't.
You just won't.
You
don't
just
do
don't.
that. Right. Although I got away with it quite a bit, anyways.
That's good. Yeah.
And I didn't, but I had felt all sorts of guilt about it. But the fact was that we would go to sock hops, and all the guys would sit against the wall, and all the girls would stand against the wall, and nobody would ask anybody to dance because we were scared shitless of each other, of course. And then some guy would go out there and ask a girl
Some
to dance.
brave soul breaking the ice.
Some brave soul. And then it would get started. And then all of us, everybody, of course, is horny adolescents. If we danced too close, the chaperones would come up and pull us apart.
Yeah, got to leave room for the Holy Spirit. I understand.
Oh, God.
That's the culture I grew up in. It did not change that much in the intervening years. I'll tell you. I'm sure in some ways it did, but not in all the ones that counted.
I didn't know anything about the Beach Boys. Never heard anything about them. And then I don't know. I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and my best friend invited me over. Little did I know he had invited his girlfriend and her girlfriend over because her girlfriend had the hots for me, and we start rolling the 45 RPMs and dancing. Whoa! I was blown away.
I bet.
But the aftermath of that.
By the quality of the sound equipment.
Right, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, that 45 RPM little tiny. I was blown away by the sexual energy.
Okay.
She was practically, she was attacking me virtually.
See her ankles.
In his bedroom as we're all dancing around. But the guilt that came after that, and I wanted in the worst way to do something about it, but I felt too guilty. But all those songs had "You're Mine Forever."
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
kind of flavor to them, and that was the first time. In answer to your question, that was probably the first time I realized, all these songs say that. Then if I have sex with her, then we're forever, kind of thing, or at least that's the way I interpreted it.
Serafina? Yeah. By the time I was growing up, we did have masturbation songs. We had the Violent Femmes and She-Bop and stuff like that. But I grew up not in a religious family. We went to church maybe like 4 times when I was a kid, and all that I remember about it is how uncomfortable the shoes were.
It's a real problem.
They were really uncomfortable shoes, to be fair.
Come to the ACA. We have more comfortable shoes.
Yeah, there you go. It's the new logo that we're going to put on the sign outside of the library. Yeah. But I did have very repressed parents who did not talk about that. I never got the talk ever. And I was just sort of discouraged from asking about those things. And so I got my sex education from popular culture. Mm-hmm. So it took me a long time to realize that the messages were toxic because they were my only messages.
Right.
It was all I had, and so, when I look back at the things that I learned from there, it's amazing that I turned out as non-terrible as I did. Because, just all of the songs were, they're either really codependent or they're really sort of salvationist even. Or they are
I need you. You come and rescue me. I can't live without you.
All that stuff.
I mean, if we were just to do a Google search, I can't live without you.
Gosh.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that's constant.
How many results?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hundreds at least.
I mean, I love my partner. I adore her. But the moment I start to think of her as like necessary or vital to my existence, that whole relationship is going to fall apart pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, that level of independence, I don't see that in pop culture. I don't see that in pop music at all. And that disturbs me that there's no model in our pop culture for healthy relationships, at least in my estimation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we're trying to do in songs like that, or shows like that, et cetera, any sort of media, is generally we're expressing some sort of powerful emotion. The more powerful, the more that people are going to respond to, and the more popular it's going to get. Mm-hmm. And so, what are the things that really drive us like to complete and utter passion? It's, stuff, our initial like obsession with a lover, or our desperation when we're afraid that a lover is going to drop away from us, or our grief at losing one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so those are the moments in relationships that are focused on in, song and story.
I like that. That's exactly right. They've kind of identified the 2 or 3 critical points in a relationship, and they've focused all the energy.
Yeah, because that's where you have such intense emotion that you remember. And so whenever you're listening to these songs, it's clicking something in your head where you had this time of passion. You're like, I relate to this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, then, is it fair to say that these, in fact, aren't unhealthy expressions, and that maybe they're hyperbolic, maybe they overstate it as a way of sort of drawing something out, or is that still problematic?
I mean, I wouldn't say that they're. I mean, it depends. It's the context. Yeah. It's contextual. Like, if you're just viewing it as a way, okay, I'm going through a grieving time, and I can listen to this and like, belt out Evanescence and it's really cathartic, then yay, that's awesome. And it's a great tool for expressing things and maybe, finding words for things in your head that hadn't found words yet. But if you are in a sea of pop culture, as we always are, that's becoming the context, and that can be dangerous, right?
Yeah, when it becomes everywhere, when it's inescapable, and like you said, when it's the only message, when there's nothing contrasting that, there's no, because it is a truism, there are like falling in love songs, and then there are heartbreak songs. There's not a whole lot of like, that was a great conversation we had. Yeah. Who's ready to go to the farmer's market songs?
We need more of those.
Yeah. I guess a little bit. I understand that, you don't really watch movies about people just sort of like casually hanging out. And if you do, that's sort of like the weird art piece point of the thing. And so I respect that, this idea that, it should be grandiose, it should be dramatic. But yeah, it is really problematic, and especially I feel music can be deceptive in the sense that it's got a catchy tune, you just kind of sing it along, and it's not until you like stop that you're like, oh wow, what words just came out of my mouth?
Read the words, mouth the words, and then you realize, oh fuck, that's pretty sick.
Remember that song "Pumped Up Kicks"?
Yeah, with
the
Jesus.
It's like this peppy little. All the other kids with the pumped up kicks, and you realize it's about a fucking like school shooting, and it's like, what the? Oh,
yeah.
What am I singing?
Yeah, I think there's another element that I'm probably because I'm older. I look back at the life cycle, and I realize almost all the love songs apply mostly to when I was 16 to 25 years old, and probably not married. Probably not married. How many songs do you have about? I'm still in love with you 25 years later.
There's a few, but not a lot.
Not a lot.
Mostly,
they're mostly
just country songs.
I was going to say they're country music songs. Now, country, I think pop songs and country songs and rock songs all kind of focus on a different area of the life cycle a little bit. But they must pretty much overlap a whole lot, I think. But yeah, so if you're going to write a love song, write it about a 17-year-old who's just falling in love, or an 18-year-old who's just falling out of love, and then you can ignore the rest of their life. There's nothing else in pop culture, really. There's no model for how do you have a 20-year relationship.
And again, that's pretty much naturally how things would be, wouldn't it? Because that's when we're forming our separate identities. So that's when we're seeking out the songs that we're going to focus on and we're going to like identify with. And so that's when we can form a lot of, what we like. So, if it speaks to us, then all the more chance we're going to go for it.
Yeah. I remember my parents were both really into music. My dad especially was very passionate, had a huge CD collection. It was a thing. And I just, I listened to what was on the radio, but I never really connected or resonated with music until I remember being like, I'm pretty confident I was in 8th grade and I was going through a breakup. I don't mean to dismiss young love, but it was, it wasn't real. But I was having just these incredible heartbreaking moments. Yeah. And somebody gave me a burn mixtape. The very specific like segment of the audience can absolutely relate to that particular moment in time. But it was a burn CD with like a Sharpie hastily scrawled phrase, love songs for the bitter, heartbroken ex. And it was all like Alkaline Trio and Death Cab for Cutie and Dashboard Confessional and, all of these like really dramatic, over-the-top love songs.
Right.
But it was also the first time I was like, I understand music. It was the first time I felt like anybody had anything artistic to say that I was able to hear, that I was ready to hear.
Right.
And the fact that it is so over the top and hyperbolic might have been why it was so accessible to an immature, underdeveloped, I wasn't ready to truly like go to the Art and History Museum and like appreciate art.
Sure.
I just wanted to hear like Chris Carrabba cry over his guitar. And it worked in a way, but now that I've matured, I realized that I'm still listening to, if not those same songs, a lot of those same messages.
Yeah, we retain that.
Right. Yeah, what is that? I mean,
Yeah, why
seriously.
are songs so able to just burrow their way into our brains?
Yeah, and they stayed there for a lifetime. I can still remember the first time I heard the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
I still remember the jingles from freaking cereal commercials when I was a kid. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but there are like Christian worship songs that I just cannot extract from my brain, and that is exhausting.
I bet. Yeah, there's something about our brains that just like grabs onto that combination of music and words and just like holds on to it. I guess that's why it's been so consistent throughout all of our cultures, throughout all of our history.
Right. Well, a song is as I've written about in some of my books, is a meme, is a unit of culture that we imbibe, just like we imbibe our language and other things. So once it gets in there, you don't throw your language away, and you don't throw the music you learn at the same time, practically. I mean, I'm learning English while I'm listening to Patty Page sing something, and it's really embedded in there. I'm never going to probably get that out.
There are definitely words I did not know prior to being a high schooler listening to, My Chemical Romance or Brand New or these different things. I definitely... I mean, it does expand your vocabulary in a literal and in a metaphorical way. I know that you talked, Darrel, about how it kind of contrasted with your Christianity and came with a lot of shame. Myself, it really fueled it, and the two kind of worked off of each other, because there was that idea of being a hopeless romantic, and God is a God of love, and God wants us to be with the person that He chooses for the rest of our lives. And so, I really did get sucked into this idea of love is eternal and these sorts of notions because of music.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's whole soulmates concept, which braids perfectly into the message that you're told that God is preparing your future for you. Mm-hmm. And so that naturally includes the person that you're supposed to be with.
Yeah, the one person that, the conventional, the traditional Christian idea of marriage of one man, one woman for life. Mm-hmm.
And that soulmates thing is an insidious idea that it sticks with people long after they've left their religion oftentimes. I've had atheists tell me I married my soulmate.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, now we're divorced. But
well, weird how that happened.
I never knew what the soulmate thing was until I was probably about 14, and our youth minister stood up and announced that he was getting married to one of the older women in the young adults youth group, or young adult singles or whatever. I think they were both like 20 or 21.
Okay.
And he stands up and he says, I'm going to marry, I can't remember, Tracy, I think her name was, and she's my soulmate. Okay. 5 years later, he has an affair with another girl in that same group. While he's married to Tracy, he gets married, divorced from Tracy, and then announces to everybody he's found his soulmate in this new one. Yeah. The guy's had 3 marriages. I don't know if the third was his soulmate or not, but he's had 3 soulmates so far. I'm always amazed that the soulmate is always within 20 miles of where you were born.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
it's not in China. How
God's
would you know if it was Moscow? Your soulmate was living in Moscow right now.
I thought the whole point of being one and only was that it was like one and only.
Yeah, it just means that you were wrong the first time. That was a lesson that God placed in front of you, so that you would be ready for the real one,
right.
which is the one you got now, of course, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
How many do you get? How many chances do you get here in this? 3 soulmates before you get the right one?
Depends.
Well, if we're finding ourselves sort of saturated in this toxic love culture, I mean, what is not toxic? What does healthy love and romance in art look like? And how do you even know the difference when you're just bopping along to the radio?
Wow. I don't know, because I don't hear a lot of songs. I was doing research for this show, and I was surprised that there were a few songs that I thought, okay, that's a healthy message, or that's, for example, being self-assertive and saying, I don't need you, I want you, but I don't need you.
Yeah.
There are songs that say that, and I think that's kind of a healthy message there. I'm not codependent on you, and if we can find enough to hold us together, that's great. But I'm not going to feel
like a shared affection, or not even like a halfway affection for the film Breakfast at Tiffany's is not enough to like build a relationship off.
Right,
of.
yeah. But I see far more.
We both kind of liked it.
What's that one?
That's one thing we've got. All right.
You already mentioned it earlier. Every breath you take.
Oh yeah.
God, that's a creepiest song. Every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you. That is stalker stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep going, baby, can't you see you belong to me?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I feel like that's a huge part of all of this is that idea of possessiveness.
Yeah, ownership, possessiveness, absolutely, yeah.
And that's, part of the religious upbringing too. It's especially if you're a guy, then you're supposed to be owning the family.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Right. It is your family, and if the family doesn't behave right, it reflects on the male.
Right.
And the male is shamed by the religious culture if they belong to a religious culture. Actually, any culture that's patriarchal is going to shame the male.
Truth.
So we don't talk about those messages that are coming through in the pop culture to boys and men about. And I see a lot of boys and men growing up acting out the messages they were given. Okay. Your job is to control your females. I mean, there's a pretty clear message in Christianity, the kind of Christianity I came out of. I mean, men control the women, and if your daughter misbehaves, it reflects on the family, shames the male, and they grow up and they act on that. Well, acting on that can mean to physical abuse and sexual abuse, certainly mental abuse.
Whatever it takes to maintain control.
Yeah, right, exactly.
This is a dark moment to bring it up, but I have to point out, Serafina, was I the only one the whole time he was talking that kept hoping he was going to bust out with a Boys II Men lyric? Because that would have just absolutely made my day.
It would have been pretty great.
All right. So I don't know if anybody on the internet is sharing this experience with me, but that was definitely where my head was at.
Well, go ahead, bust out.
No, I'm not going to do that.
I don't do karaoke or anything like that very well.
Motown Philly is solidly stuck in my head right now, but no, I was actually thinking about what you were saying, and it's just like, if we're given a story, especially during our formative years, we're going to act out that story. I like to say that people are made of humans are made of cells, but people are made of stories.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's what we are. We're a bunch of stories and being enacted, and that's if we're given the same story over and over, then what else are we going to do?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think what we can do in this kind of discussion is start helping people build different stories and challenge the stories so they can create their own in more healthy ways. But I don't see anybody the conversation we're having right now. I don't see anybody having. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong, but have either of you seen a place where somebody is critiquing the pop culture in the way it teaches people bad relationship ideas and narratives around monogamy and marriages around devotion and soulmates and all that sort? Is there anything challenging that?
Or if there has to be a lot of distance. Now occasionally you'll see these sort of like thoughtful New Yorker think pieces about, Disney princesses or something like that. And so I do think that there are voices that are starting to question these things, but it feels pretty rare that anybody is actually challenging what happened on last week's episode of The Good Wife in any kind of meaningful way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different problem than we used to have. Like, we used to have like a dearth of sources that were saying good things, but now we have just so many sources saying every different thing that it's more like you're only going to catch the really good critiques if you're already listening to those sorts of critiques.
I think that that's very true. I mean, social media is incredible in the way that it can get a particular message out to a wide audience. And because that's true, there's so much self-selecting going on that, I mean, I can end up seeing the same, pro-social, healthy love type meme 10 different times.
Right. And then the person next door to you has never seen it.
Absolutely.
once.
Yeah. Right. One thing I think we haven't really hit on is what's the physiological component of this? Because like you said, it chooses, these memes get embedded in us at a particular time when our hormones are flowing.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think the hormones, of course, we know how memory works, and hormones really amplify the memory from whatever's happening to us at that time.
Yeah.
So I think people don't realize what's happening to them. They're getting programmed, and the hormones allow for the programming. The culture knows how to do this. So I want to talk to people about how do we recognize the programming, and how do we challenge the programming in ourselves around it is an opiate. We are being programmed with opiates, powerful opioid kinds of hormones at 16, 17 as we're listening to this music. And when we fall in love with somebody, the oxytocin's there and it's bonding us whether we know it or not. And then when it breaks, we go through drug withdrawal. We'll literally go through withdrawal. And it feels terrible, but part of the reason it feels terrible is because it's a chemical that we no longer are getting. If I'm in love with you and you leave, you were producing oxytocin in me, and now I don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not any different than somebody was shooting up in another kind of opiate drug. Anyway, I don't hear too many people talking about that. Not very romantic, is it?
Yeah, no, I suppose not. And
you took my oxytocin away. Maybe we could write a song about that. You think that in the top 40?
I mean, Kesha did do "Your Love Is My Drug," so maybe.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Could do that.
Yeah, and that is this very sort of tongue-in-cheek thing, and it ties into this idea that love makes us powerless. That we did it all for the glory of love. That love is so overwhelming that it just draws us in, and we're powerless against it. Which I think is a really dangerous message, that we're somehow not responsible for our actions.
Oh,
because our love is so overwhelming in that way.
But that's everywhere in the lyrics, right? I can't help myself. I want you and nobody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Can't keep my hands to myself.
Can't keep my eyes off of you. You're just too good to be true.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
We're getting double digits here. I'm actually pretty proud of us. This is not bad work.
Hunk of burning love. Yeah.
Well, I guess that begs the question then, as a discerning consumer, as somebody who is wanting to be intentional about what they're putting into their minds and brains, and particularly for parents as they're kind of trying to manage, but also kids, teenagers are at that age where Mom, I don't want to listen to your music, and you got to respect that. But what should we be allowing ourselves? Where should we be drawing the lines? If we, are reading the right books and we have the right attitudes about love, does that mean that, we can turn on the top 40 station and be safe? I don't want to make it, I don't want to be a scaremonger, but I do find these things really concerning.
Just don't play them backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's also a joke for a very specific moment in American history.
Back in the 80s, okay.
I'm sorry. If you don't get that one, it's all my fault.
Hey.
I love pop music. Every song, even the creepy one, every step you take, I still like it. I love hearing it. Yeah. So I don't see anything wrong with us listening. We listen to all sorts of crap. We read all sorts of crap. But if we've got an understanding of what a good relationship looks like, we can kind of filter it out and say, okay, I enjoyed the story, but it's pretty sick. Mm-hmm. The Dracula, that's a pretty sick story in many ways. But Or there's, all sorts of other kinds of novels that we've read. I think Romeo and Juliet is,
Oh, yeah.
it's a pretty sick kind of thing, but
Sure.
it's romantic and all that, and we can identify with it. But we don't have to imbibe it and say, I want to live by that model.
Right. And I think that, like, to a large extent, we don't have a lot of choice because, like, short of, being raised in a Christian homeschooling compound where all of our media is completely chosen for us and kept from, broader culture.
But we'll still sneak it in. I'm telling you, we will find ways. I remember, like, my friends and I, sharing breaking headphones apart so that we could put one to an ear so that we could get away with listening to that satanic music or that whatever that we weren't supposed to have.
Yeah, we literally found a scrap of a pornographic magazine on the playground, and we were like, "Yeah, this is so great."
You can see most of a boob.
Yeah, I know, right? Wait, what is that?
Well, you should have lived in my neighborhood. We had a much more productive area. We would go to the armory where the National Guard was and the trash cans in back, and we would dumpster dive for porn.
You had that.
wow.
Down,
About once a month, they would find. I guess the sergeant threw his porn away and bought some new or whatever. I don't know. So that's half of my porn collection.
I like to think, you said like once a month we'd find something. So I like to imagine y'all going through every single day after school for that like occasional pay dirt.
Hell yeah. The problem with that would be?
Yeah, where there's a will. Yeah.
As long as you got home before mom figured out what was going on.
I respect it. I respect that drive.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. All right.
As Wichita, Kansas. I mean, it's not a small town, but anyway, my dad's porn collection only went so far. They had to get my own after that.
Yeah, it took me ages to find my dad's porn collection. It's a story I've told here a few times. It was literally in plain sight the whole time, but it was in had bookends. And so all I could see was the title Penthouse, and I thought it was fucking architecture. So I did not even check. I didn't even look. I had no idea. I was passing it by every day.
Who will tell the children? Who will get the message out?
Well, I think there's a message, this very strong message throughout pop culture, and that is monogamy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Constant. And
as the only option.
Yeah, only option. And heteronormative stuff. All that, everything.
Of course.
Everything is geared towards that. And we're hearing a change in some of the music. It's hard to find anything that's explicit. I'm not as familiar with the later groups, but I'm thinking you guys know more.
What are you looking at me for? I'm 44.
Yeah. Oh, you're just a baby. Well, anyway, but there was one song. I don't know if you guys know this song, or even if our listeners do, but it's Connie Francis singing "Torn Between Two Lovers." Mm-hmm. Have you heard that one?
I have.
Okay, if you've never heard it, I want to read There are times when a woman has to say what's on her mind, even though she knows how much it's going to hurt. Before I say another word, let me tell you, I love you. Let me hold you close and say these words as gently as I can. There's been another man and I've needed and loved, but that doesn't mean I don't love you less. What's that sound like? This is like 1959.
Yeah.
She's singing this song. This is polyamory, or it could become
an
polyamory.
attempt. Sure. Yeah.
Right.
She hasn't. She's telling him I got another man, but she's not saying I want to. She's torn between lovers, and I gotta choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that. You gotta choose one lover. You can't have more than one at a time.
Yeah, I mean, Dolly Parton, Jolene.
Oh, yeah.
Which is all of these things wrapped into one. Like this man is helpless to Jolene's wiles.
Oh, yeah.
That she has all of the power and he is completely without agency.
Yeah.
This idea that she can just steal him and take him away, and that possessiveness of
Inherent
all of
possession.
this.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. And the whole possessiveness is based on the monogamy narrative,
Right?
In our culture. I own you. You can't have anybody else, and if you do, you're going to break my heart, or I have the right to do bad things to you. I mean, even murder. I mean, we see that.
Right.
There are songs. Country music songs. Mostly, I think, aren't there, that people get murdered because they left the lover or they got another lover.
Yeah, or at the very
Pretty
least, their truck gets all destroyed in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, yeah.
I can play this game all night, Serafina.
But yeah, no, that's
Louisville
a common
Slugger.
theme
All right.
amongst popular music is just the whole, you're looking at that dude, or I saw lipstick on your shirt, or that sort of thing.
Lipstick on your shoulder.
Uh-huh.
Yep, I remember that one.
And like the extreme emotion of that is, and rightly so, because it's such an intense emotion, and it's something that people can relate to. But it's omnipresent in the music.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're saying that it's okay to take these messages in, that they're somewhat unavoidable, and that there can still be a lot of fun to it. There can even be something relatable to it, even if it is hyperbolic and sometimes even quite toxic. But I guess what I'm hearing from you is that the inoculation against that is just having already established a sophisticated, mature understanding of what healthy love should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I think when going clear back to adolescence, we don't have a good model, obviously, but the emotions are. We're leaving our parents, we're leaving our family,
right.
So we have that security there, and we're searching. Most of us, this is my psychological guessing, are looking for a substitute for the security we found in our home.
Sure.
I'm at home. My parents take really good care of me. I'm looking for the next person who's going to take care of me. And whether you're male, female, or otherwise, you're going to look for that substitute security. And that's...
Leave her father's home and cleave to her new husband develop a new household. And
that's the religious model for it.
Sure.
But so
Papa, don't preach.
What I see is nobody's talking about autonomy in late adolescence. We people just seem to want to latch onto each other and become very codependent real quickly. And when that happens, you end up with a pretty bad relationship. And you end up getting divorced if you get married in 5 years or whatever. And I think we just had some talk and discussion within whatever our sex education programs are about what does codependence look like? What does autonomy look like?
Darrel, you're in Texas. We can't get sex ed to even discuss how to put on a condom.
Sex ed.
I don't think
That's
that non-monogamy or like lack of possessiveness is. I don't know that that's on the menu.
You know what sex ed is in Texas? This show. Yeah.
Sorry, kids. We're all you got.
I forgot to bring the condom for the demo.
Right.
Well, we got the finger cuts, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Well, I think that's probably what we're doing here. You're right. This is sex education, not just for Texas. Hopefully, it'll make it up to Kansas. We need some where I live too. Yeah. So back to what I was mentioning. The time to really have these discussions is not when you're 35.
Sure.
And unfortunately, what I see, because I work with recovering from religion, is people are chatting in or calling in to us, and they're dealing with. I thought I married my soulmate when I was still a Christian. Well, now I'm not a Christian anymore. What do I do with this soulmate thing? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get my husband upset. I don't want to get my wife up or whatever, my partner upset, and it's really, it comes down to how to open another can of worms. How do you renegotiate a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody tells us anything about renegotiating. Mm-hmm. The way you
or even
renegotiate,
the initial negotiation.
No, nobody.
It's supposed to be a
just
pop
jump in.
song from the get-go.
Right. Yeah, it could be, and it's not. The negotiation happens when you hire the lawyers to get divorced.
Yeah.
And they do the negotiation for you. Well, I think if we were talking about how you establish healthy relationships and negotiate the boundaries and the understandings and all that sort of stuff, we could have a hell of a lot better long-term relationships. Whether it's lifelong or not, it's a whole other question. I don't think we're built for lifelong relationships, personally. Not many people achieve it anyway. So,
and like so many mental, psychological issues, what you're talking about is also very much a cultural issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're, you know, at that age, we're literally being, you know, pushed out onto into a system, a culture that isn't really supporting us very much.
Sure.
Right.
And, you know, where are we going to find the support we need? We've got to seek out other people. I mean, it's not just an emotional need. It's an actual physical need that we have because, you know, we are no longer able to support ourselves on one income.
Right.
You know, we're not able to, you know, take care of ourselves when we are spending all of our time educating ourselves and or, you know, working for someone in order to get the money to live. What time do we have to take care of ourselves or even think about ourselves? You know, so what else are we going to do but seek out someone where we find, you know, relationship and connection and, you know, bond to each other so that we can support each other because who else is going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so help me walk through this, but I feel like because we're talking about love and intimacy and these things that are like very basic to ourselves, when we come from a religious background, because they're so fundamental, we sort of imbue them with the divine. You know?
Yeah.
And
Right,
so even
yeah.
if yes, in many places, different religious texts will explicitly talk about your relationship and how it should be. But even outside of that, there's this idea that if something doesn't resonate, if it doesn't feel right, that it's morally wrong in a like heaven or hell kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates this idea that like you can't negotiate. You know,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
I remember having a friend who was in a relationship. He was in San Antonio. His girlfriend was in Austin, and they were talking about getting engaged. And he was talking about, you know, how they might live apart for a while and wanting to potentially keep their finances separate because he felt like a lot of couples argue over money, and he didn't want to invite that into his relationship. And I can't point to anywhere in the Bible that says that husbands and wives have to have the same money. But I just felt like that was wrong and God would hate that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in that culture, when I was infused with those ideas, it felt divinely evil to even hear them considering this model of relationships and negotiating the type of relationship that, you know, could have worked very well for them and been exactly what they were wanting.
Yeah. Right.
But you were taught that a certain type of relationship was God's plan.
Yeah.
And that was
absolutely.
the relationship that was modeled for you. And that kind of relationship would never do that.
Right, exactly.
right. Well, you were letting the woman have control over some of the money.
Well, that's a big problem right there, you know, because money is numbers and counting. So that wasn't going to work out, clearly.
Well, that was a big thing in our denomination that I grew up in. Now, after I got older and left, they started teaching Christian finances. I never heard.
Thank you, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, yeah, right. I think that was who it was, and it was just mind-boggling how.
Ask any accountant. Just, he's terrible. Never. No, it's fine. It's fine. We're talking about love,
There's
not
a story
finance.
here. There is a story here. Okay.
Yeah, but it was just so misogynistic, and the man's the head of the household. The man should be controlling the money, and oh God, it was. Thank goodness I was gone by the time all that started coming into my church. Oh, yeah. Now there's other places you get messages in the pop culture that we haven't even mentioned, and that is the groups that we like, Boy Scouts,
Oh, yeah.
or Girl Scouts. Now I love the Girl Scouts. I think they're super progressive. I love everything they're doing. The Boy Scouts are still working out how to get out of the Middle Ages. But there's hope there. They have made some progress for sure. But there's other groups. It's not just churches. You get civic groups that are still pretty much into giving message around that. I mean, if I joined the local Lions Club and I announced that I'm polyamorous to everybody, I'm not sure how long.
I don't know how welcome you'd be. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So there's and there's probably Rotary clubs that wouldn't accept me if I said I was gay. And they don't want a trans person coming in at all. So, there's still groups that are giving these messages out. And I think we just need to start talking and challenging them and realizing that the messages aren't just in pop culture, not just in the songs. I mean, they're the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I could go on and on about the Boy Scouts. I don't think they've changed enough by a long shot.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh gosh, where are we now?
Well, you were talking about how we relate relationships to divinity, and that got me thinking. Just like how there's like this subset of songs and such that is just putting oneself in a relationship with someone else that's very much modeled on the whole God-human relationship, where one is the divine, untouchable being, and the other one is the groveling worm, which got me to thinking
it's the head of the household, just the way God's the head of the church.
Yeah,
right. So that got me thinking about "Creep" by Radiohead. Yeah,
okay.
Not by there's so many songs named "Creep," but yeah, in this case, the Radiohead one, and it's just like. Okay, so when you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world, and I wish I was special. You're so fucking special. But I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't care if it hurts. I want to have control. I want a perfect body. I want a perfect soul. I want you to notice when I'm not around. Just notice when I'm not around. You're so fucking special. I wish I was special, but I'm a creep. And it's just like on and on about that. And it's just, holy crap. This is very much the whole, submitting oneself and being unworthy before a divine being thing, just writ large onto a human relationship with another person.
And seeking a rescuer.
Yeah.
That your angelic divinity is going to give my life meaning and going to give me purpose.
Salvation.
Yeah, right.
There's so many salvation romance songs and stories around.
There are, yeah. That's really fucked up. I didn't know that song. That's interesting. Wow, thanks for bringing that out. Wow. I had I thought the Eagles song Already Gone, it's kind of an angry song, but it did have one message, and I think, okay, that's actually not a bad message. But I had to search long and hard to find messages that I thought were fairly mentally healthy.
Right.
Well, here's just the relevant piece here. Towards the end of the song, it says, well, I know it wasn't you who held me down. Heaven knows it wasn't you who set me free. So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the key. That is interesting. We put ourselves in this position. We enslave ourselves basically, and we don't even know we got the key to the chains to let ourselves go. And I see a lot as a marriage and family counselor. I'm sure you have too. How many people are trapped in a relationship and have no way to renegotiate it, no way to get out because their religion says they can't. And, and the key is sitting right there on the desk the whole time. They could just pick it up and walk away, really.
Yeah.
But what stops them? Because the culture has given us so many messages about how terrible you are if you get divorced or if you leave a bad relationship. And I mean, there's lots of messages.
If your marriage ends, it's automatically a failure.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's presumed right there.
Right. Yeah.
That there's something wrong with you, that you couldn't make it work, that you just didn't try hard enough.
Right.
That I think is a really constant message in sort of that Calvinistic like work ethic kind of mentality. That if you just try hard enough, that you can make a relationship work. And it means that people have to sort of sacrifice their whole lives to this institution that's meant to serve the people in it. Right. It's actually a fight that I have with a lot of other therapists, a lot of particularly couples and like marriage and family therapists. Whenever I first meet a couple, I always ask them, okay, are we here because we want to stay together? Are we here because we want to break up? Or are we here because we don't know? And many, many, many couples counselors see themselves as there to keep the relationship together. And I feel like the relationship is a institution that's meant to serve the people.
Right.
And if it's not serving them well, then it needs to be disbanded.
Absolutely. Right. And I have, just to pick up and run with that a little bit more, I have a real pet peeve around this notion of fixing a relationship.
Sure.
I can fix my car. I can't fix a relationship.
Yeah.
But I can help you negotiate a new relationship, a change in the relationship, or an end to relationship. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically. And we have no model for that. We don't talk about how to, what's the purpose of coming to family counselors, marriage counselors, they're terrible at this because they think they got their whole profession based around saving people's marriages, fixing people's marriages. You don't fix marriages. You renegotiate marriages. Actually, I don't even like the word renegotiate marriage. You renegotiate relationships. Even if it's not a marriage, you can still renegotiate a long-term relationship.
Create something new.
Yeah, right. And it can be even more fun and more interesting. I mean, I know lots of people who have been married 20 years and they went through a crisis. They could have gotten divorced and they chose, no, let's see what this, we've had a good time for 20 years. See if we can do it again for another 10 or another 20. But that means we have to change the
rules a little bit.
The rules and the basic assumptions of the relationship. And there's lots of options after that if you just put it down. But as a religious couple, you don't have any options. You can't renegotiate. You signed a contract on the day you were 21 years old and got married. And it's that contract doesn't die until you do, or one of the two of you do. That's really the way it. And yet, many of the rules aren't even written in that contract, and yet you're supposed to follow them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if you're not religious, you're still, growing up in that culture and feel like that's the way that things are supposed to be.
Exactly. You're still surrounded by these ideas. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Cool. I like this. This is an interesting conversation. It wasn't anything like what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to sit around and talk about stupid words and songs, but
well, if that is kind of all of it, we do have some stupid words and some stupid songs that I'd like to dive into if you like.
Please.
Right? So we're gonna set the mood just a little bit, and I wanted to point out to y'all one of these like very early songs that made such a big impression on me when I was young, and I think it was one of the first times I really thought about how meaningful these lyrics can be, in the sense that I loved it, I fell for it, and I remember listening to it in the car with my folks, and their reaction to it was like horror, as it probably should have been. But in that teenage puppy dog brain, I just wasn't ready to recognize that.
Right.
So this is a dramatic reading.
Ooh, all right.
Performance. You're So Last Summer by Taking Back Sunday.
Okay. All right.
She said, Don't let it go to your head. Boys like you are a dime a dozen. Boys like you are a dime a dozen, she said. You're a touch overrated. You're a lush, and I hate it. But these grass stains on my knees, they don't mean a thing. And all I need to know is that I'm something you'll be missing. Maybe I should hate you for this, but I never really ever did quite get that far. I'd never lie to you, unless I had to. I'll do what I got to.
I mean,
The truth is, you could slit my throat, and with my one last gasping breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on your shirt.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah. And my parents were pretty shocked by that.
Yeah.
Pretty reasonably shocked by that. But I was just like, that is love. That's so beautiful.
right.
And it's an embodiment of all of these things that we're talking about.
Understand, they're squares.
Yeah, right? You just don't get it, Mom. And look, I know that most of us have grown beyond, early 2000s emo. I mean, actually, maybe not. I know plenty of people who
really
still listen to that. But yeah, there is an inherent immaturity to these things, and I think that it can be. Maybe alcohol is the best metaphor. It can be a lot of fun. If you're coming at it from a healthy place, it can actually be something that you can share with other folks. It can be really enjoyable. It has the opportunity to be sophisticated, but it sure can be crazy dangerous if you're not careful with it, or if you're too young for it.
Right. Yeah. And I think there is an age factor.
Yeah.
In some of this, what you're ready to be receptive to. Yeah.
Sure.
Because you're going to listen to that when you're 5 and not care about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when you're
I think that's
15,
part of it.
Yeah. 15.
Then when you're 15, you're like, this is everything.
Right.
this is my life. How did they know?
How did he know?
What was inside my heart?
Right?
And then at 30, you're going to say, fuck, how did I ever listen to that? Yeah.
But then you're going to turn it on and play it again. Because,
Right? And
because
then as
stuck
you're
with it.
going down the highway. So I guess that's what our takeaway from all of this is you can still enjoy Jolene. You can still enjoy Dolly Parton and the Police and
I will
Taking Back
always enjoy
Sunday
Dolly
and
Parton.
all of these things. I mean, who doesn't? Right?
Yeah.
But make sure that whether you're a kid or an adult, that you're actually prioritizing these ideas of not being possessive,
Right,
of not being
yeah.
codependent, of not needing to be rescued by somebody or seeking to rescue anybody else, and that, relationships can end, and that's cool. That's okay. That's part of the life cycle. And yeah, to just try to be a responsible consumer of these things.
Right.
Being conscious.
And then when you get to be my age, you can actually listen to the Beatles song, Will You Still Love Me, when I'm 64. And now that's one of the few songs that I can now relate to.
Still need you?
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me? When I'm 64. There, I busted out for you.
There you go.
I do love that idea of being like infirmed and unable to feed yourself at 64. Because at 15, that made sense to me. That tracked.
Right.
I was like, yeah, by the time you're 64, like, you're basically dead.
Someone's
ready
feeding
to
you
You'll be
mush
in a
from a bowl
nursing
at that
home.
point.
So, Jesus, 64 is not old. Okay.
I totally agree with that.
Co-signed. Okay, well, fun conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I'd like to thank everybody out in the audience. I'd love to hear everybody's favorite toxic but awesome, fun, and crazy love songs. Shoot us an email. Drop it in the comments, actually. I would love to hear everybody's favorite bad, wonderful, bad, awesome songs.
Oh, I can't wait to read these comments.
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
going to be fun. Yeah.
And a happy July 4th to everybody out there. And with that, Darrel, would you like to take us out?
Yes. Why don't you help me, Sarah?
How can I help you, Darren?
I want you to go out and give yourself a great orgasm today.
Or give one to someone else.
Ta-da!